Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. A little over 4 months, Cameroonians will go to the poll to elect a president who will steer the ship of state for the next 7 years. The October election is full of multifaceted stakes and agitations. Beyond the stakes, the active involvement of the electorate in the registration process gives the 2025 presidential a remarkable character. The frontline actors, some political party leaders, are seeing the pool behind a hard wall. How they cross the wall is our concern on today's edition of Press Hour. I am Killian Dandifon in Yaoundé. You are welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Presidential election 2025. What are the chances of aspirants getting through? It's our focus on Press Hour today. And to talk about this, we have read, we have heard, we have seen so many interpretations of who is going to qualify, who is not qualified. We have people on the set who have been reading through some of those things that come from respectable people, some from social media, but we on CRTV and on Press Hour make sure we give you just what you need to know, and we give you what you can trace, what you can trust. Barrister Fombat Mujem, barrister at law, is going to look at some of those things and tell us. Welcome to Press Hour, Barrister.
Thank you, Killian, and good morning to all our televiewers. Once more, we're again here, ready to share knowledge as our own contribution towards nation building.
And the newspapers have been relaying some of these interpretations of what is happening and what's going to happen come October for the presidential poll. We have with us Lucas Tenen, Chefo, who is the publisher of the Reporter newspaper, and he also must have been trying to interpret like other newspapers. You're welcome to Press Hour. Lucas.
Thank you very much, Killian. Good morning and happy Sunday to all our televiewers. It is a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to enlighten Cameroonians on some of the things that they consider to be taboo or consider to be hearsay. I think when you talk about newspapers, when you write in a newspaper, it is considered as gospel truth. So
yeah, because if you just joke, there are people waiting for you.
Yeah, so we think that our stay here today for 1 hour will be beneficial to Cameroonians.
That is why you have come, and I introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Anchang, who is a political analyst. Just by that introduction and that title, you know, he is going to dissect some of those interpretations politically for you and for us. You're welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much, Killian. Thank you to CRTV as well. Thank you to your director, Charles Dongo, for having me here. Welcome also to other co-panelists. Happy Sunday to all. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, as you rightly say, we shall dissect and probably bring a scientific political analogy to the political aspirants, the process, the procedure, and what it takes as well, and the context of Cameroon and the sovereignty as well. So it's important for us. I think from a political standpoint, from a political analysis standpoint, I'll be able to give input so that those back at home and also here on the platform, we can exchange and bring some sacrosanct clarity.
That's just what we wait to have from you. We are impatient to have that. We are this time going to introduce the fourth panelist, Reverend Kundang Robert. He is USDP Communication Secretary for the Central Region. It's a political party. We've had the president here on several occasions, and the president of USDP is one of those who are seeking to have an alliance in the opposition to political parties to go face a common front to go for the election. You are welcome, Reverend Robert.
Thank you, Killian. Thank you, and happy Sunday to everyone. Happy Sunday to our president, Prince Ekoso, who happens to be one of the aspiring candidates coming powerfully this year I want to also greet all the members of CITV, especially Chandungu, for giving us the opportunity to enlighten Cameroonians on what is going on.
Yes, we want to join you to give credit to our Director General, Chandungu, who is not only doing that on his own, he is following the editorial policy of CRTV. CRTV, for those who do not know, is public service. That's why we bring you to this place to serve the public and join us do that together. We're not going to have a slot that introduces the debate today for some unforeseen circumstances, but we can kick off with one or two issues that came up in the press. We always call on the press man on the set to tell us one or two things only that apart from what we have on our menu. What is it we can say that caught our attention this week?
Yeah, Gillian, this week was actually eventful, and the press, the press is always there to the press being the mirror of society, is always there to reflect what things that happen. You see, the Prime Minister was in Southwest. It was announced before he went to Southwest. What was making news in the press too was the departure of Muslim pilgrims to the Holy Land. And then another thing that actually caught my attention was the issue of the person who killed a young child, that he was taken to prison. I think that allayed the fears of so many people. So those are three things that were making news in the press this week, and I thought that we could even share one or two things about those issues.
Yes, you as barrister at law, when someone commits, if he's already there, it means he's established at a certain point that he is involved. He is in what we call awaiting trial, under custody, I think so. Yeah. The verdict hasn't yet come. But you as a lawyer, what comment do you have when someone commits, a suspect commits that type of crime, killing a 6-year-old with a machetes, or call it a sword? It is gruesome, and it takes everyone aback. What interpretation, what's the position of men of law, jurists that you are?
Yes, well, we have to understand that every suspect is presumed guilty until he's proven. Every suspect is presumed innocent until he's proven guilty. Each time somebody is being prosecuted, if there is reason that the person staying outside might tamper with evidence, or the person staying outside might affect the search for the truth, the person is remanded on prison custody. So the suspect of this offense is true. It's a painful incident. We still carry the pain in our hearts. He is under prison custody now. He is awaiting trial, and he is going to go through what they call the preliminary inquiry before the examining magistrate, after which the examining magistrate might now charge him to court for him to be tried in open court. But for now, he is under prison custody, and we await that justice should take its course. He will have a right to a lawyer because he must present his own defense, and like I said, he is presumed innocent until the facts are proven that he committed the offense, even though we all apparently saw.
That is what I was going to ask you. Maybe I should just relaunch and you say, this idea of everyone is considered innocent until they are proven guilty.
Yes.
This is someone who, from a discussion or a dispute in a beer parlor, got up. People who were there saw him get up. They saw him when he went to the house of the person with whom he was in dispute. We saw how he brought down, pierced, they killed this child of 6 years. So what again is there for us, this case like others, for us to say he is a suspect?
Yes, for every offense, every offender is considered as a suspect, because it is a prosecution that has to bring the facts to the table for the judge to convict. In fact, the judge is presumed to have no knowledge of what is happening, because the judge is expected to listen to the facts of the case for the first time when the prosecution is laying the facts and tendering the necessary evidence. So it is after the facts have been established by the legal department and the necessary evidence and witnesses listened to, that the judge now will ascertain whether effectively this is the person who committed this offense. It is true that we can safely say that we are driving towards a conviction of the man, because what we call in French, that the facts are very clear. But again, it does not change the fact that we cannot deviate from the capital role of prosecution, which is you have to charge the person, you have to ask whether he pleads guilty or not guilty. If he pleads not guilty, then you have to give the floor to the legal department, who is the prosecutor, to expose the facts, explain the facts, and tender evidence. And then the suspect will be given an opportunity to present a defense. If the defense cannot wipe out the accusations of the legal department, then he'll be convicted.
That's not our topic. That's why I will not go forth with questioning you on this. But some of us really feel bad when you lawyers, you go with a very well prepared, conceived, and prepared argument to defend such a person. We are not going to go into that, but sometimes it baffles us how lawyers can go and defend a person who did that type of thing. We are still on some of the issues that made news during the week, Paul.
Yes, to me, from a political science standpoint, from a political analysis standpoint, I think I would piggyback to the presidential plan of reconstruction, which brings about social cohesion. You would see where the Prime Minister, head of government, accompanied by other members of government and the European Union, went to the Southwest and presided over this ceremony for the launching with other members of government to implement some of the plans that they have there. You also saw the social cohesion, I think, in with FACO East, the Honorable Parliamentarian Findi, which covers Tiko, Mutengene, and Limbe, the crowds and the mobilization, the political impact, the welcoming, the warm welcome he had there. So you see a social cohesion, and you also see a reduction of the violence there. So for me, that was kind of really important as well for the Prime Minister, head of government, to be himself there, present physically as well. It's very important for the Southwest region and for the Northwest region as well. And then for me, the conduction of the Hajj, I think we have to give credit to the organizing committee. We saw Kameko, which took off actually in Kutaba, which is a first. So we'll hopefully ask ourselves, maybe Kameko can also take off in Tiko.
Okay, we'll wait to see that. I went to the Tiko airport. I don't know whether it has been rehabilitated, but when I went there, it was an eyesore. Now, to you, Reverend Robert, your comment on these issues that made news during the week.
I think what really moved me is the gesture from the president supporting the Muslim who went for pilgrimage. What he did to them, I like to show a sign of a father that he was. And the people were very happy. I think that marked me. That we what the publisher just said that happened. The man killed, the child that was killed. I think those are some of the things that we should not encourage.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into our focus. Our focus on Press Art today is Presidential Election 2025. It's going to take place in October. We are at the beginning of June, which means it is virtually in 4 months' time. Now, what are the chances of some aspirants getting through what we call a wall? Some of them who, by their making or by the law, they cannot, who may be popular, but they cannot qualify to run themselves. And we are going to invite Barrister Fombat to tell us, what does the law say about a candidate qualifying? Because we are going to take some of the candidates one by one, at least those that are popular, to try to see where the law is blocking them and the possibilities of them getting through. Yes, Barrister.
Yes.
This Wahala.
Yes.
That is making a lot of news and noise.
Yeah. I think the law is clear on the conditions for somebody's candidacy to be accepted as a candidate for presidential elections. You must be of age 35 years. You must have paid. You must have paid the deposit of 30 million francs. You must be presented by a political party, or if you don't have a political party, then you can be presented by, you can be an independent candidate on condition that you put together 300 signatories of elected officials, 30 per region. And what is making frontline news is the fact that there is the second part of Article 121 of the Electoral Code, which says that a political party that does not have elected officials must conform to the 300 signatures condition. So now the first question you ask yourself, if you must get 300 signatures from elected officials in Cameroon, considering that the CPDM has almost 80% of the elected officials, which it means that you have to go into the dish of CPDM to get signatures on there. Now, will a party that has its own candidate allow its own elected official to give signatures for his opponent? I find out a little bit tricky. The other question that is, the real question that is making frontline news is the fact of determining whether a political party that does not have elected officials or a political party that inherits elected officials can consider itself to be qualified to present a candidate. That is, can they consider themselves to be owners of elected officials? That is where the problem really lies. And if we want to look at that, you will look at the Constitution in its Article 15, which clearly talks about impose, or what we call imperative mandate. It is Article 15 sub 3 of the Electoral of the Constitution says that any impose or imperative mandate is null and void. So now the question is, we need to be looking at what is an impose and what is an imperative mandate. An imposed mandate is a mandate that is tied to a political party or to an electoral dispute, an electoral district, which means that if you cease from being a member of a political party, then you also lose your mandate. Or if you cease from being somebody of a particular constituency where you voted, you lose your membership. So the law, the Constitution in Article 15, sub 3 says that imposed mandates are null and void. So we move now, the Constitution migrated then to what we call a representative mandate, which means the representative mandate is a mandate that it grants you a national representation, which is, for me, I see that it tantamounts with democratic principles in the sense that once you are voted under the banner of a political party, you no longer become an electorate of that political party, you become an electorate of the entire nation. But we must agree that the Constitution, our law, the laws in Cameroon have not actually determined the fate of the migration of representative mandates. In other electoral system, it clearly states when you move, whether the mandate stays, whether you can carry the mandate to a different political party or not. Our law in Cameroon is not very clear on that. So we can consider a kind of a legal vacuum with that. But if you look at the spirit of the law and the raison d'etre, the answer is very clear. The answer is very clear. You don't need to go round and round to be able to understand that a representative mandate cannot be traded. It cannot be moved from one political party to the other. Once you have been voted under the banner of a party, even if you're no longer a member of that political party, you can't transfer that mandate to another political party. The law prohibits that.
Now, do we have candidates, aspiring candidates, who have been blocked by some of these things that you're talking about? Because the argument is clear around the country.
Yeah, unfortunately we don't yet have a situation where a candidacy has been rejected because the political party that presented the candidate does not have elected officials, or the political party claimed to have inherited elected officials and our election management body rejects the candidacy. We might be moving into our first precedence in the sense that if you look at, there are some political parties that boycotted local elections, and then today they are void of elected representatives, but they have co-opted elected officials from other parties, and their stand is that by the simple fact that they have cohorted or elected officials that were elected under the banner of another political party is now in their party, they claim that they have representatives, which to me, I think that it is a wrong premise if we are looking at it, because if you see, the law says, when you look at the principle of representative mandate, it's even clear to understand. Representative mandate means that even if your party, the party under which you are elected, dismisses you from the party, you continue to be an elected official because you are a representative of the nation. So, if your party cannot strip you off your credentials as an elected representative, in the same manner, you can't give it to another party.
Okay, you cannot
give it to another party because your party cannot strip you off. And then, if you look at it, when it's simple to even look at it, when we have elections, at the proclamation of results, we say, for example, our National Assembly is represented by 5 political parties. Throughout the term of office, that number of parties in Parliament does not change. Even if all the elected officials of a political party resign and join a different party that is not in Parliament, that party does not cease from being a party represented in Parliament.
Thank you so much. The barrister has used the language, the middle way language of a jurist, without calling names. You are a political analyst.
Yes.
Contextualize it for us.
Thank you. I think it's very simple to contextualize. I think he has given the legally binding components of a mandate and of an investiture. What I only like to reiterate here, people should understand that the investiture is actually the formal initiation process by a political party, because Article 3 actually allows to concur for universal suffrage at political parties. So actually, when the party invests a candidate, it's the formal process of actually putting in place that political party is well represented within the universal suffrage. Now, universal suffrage also is the right to vote. So you cannot really trade or vote, because the elected official in this particular case is representing the constituents and the constituency. But now I think if we come back to politics, the way we go away from the legally binding part of it, I think we will talk about the CRM political party, because that's really the case. They were not able, they didn't go for the legislative elections as well, and they're looking for a way to be able to come back into the elections. Where I see here is that I think with the CRM political party, they find a difficulty in raising the 300 votes, because of course they cannot steal that from the signatures. They find a difficulty getting the 300 signatures. So of course they will try to look for an alibi which will maybe convince them, but unfortunately I think they cannot also replace the Electoral Council and replace the Constitutional Council, because the admissibility in terms of voting, in terms of a political candidacy, is with the Electoral Council first, before in terms of the rejection or admissibility you go to the Constitutional Council. So I think for the CRM political party, they are having difficulty understanding well that they will not be able to present a candidate to the presidential elections as well. And so that candidate, in situ per se, who understands that in terms of himself, in terms of eligibility, garnering the 300 signatures will be very difficult. So they look for that particular loophole where they think, where they're trying to see if at all it will be able to pass.
In 2013, I know I'm not making a mistake.
Yes.
In the Northwest region, during the first senatorial election that we had, it is an election that is carried out. Those who vote are not direct universal suffrage.
Yes.
They represent the others. We are talking about councillors, we are talking about other people. In 2013, the CPDM had the majority of councillors in the Northwest region, but the SDF that won the senatorial election. Are you just concluding that given, like the barrister has interpreted the law, and as you are saying, you never can tell that the MRC could go fish into the basket or the sea of the CPDM that has the majority, and what happened in 2013 happens to them to get the signatories for him to qualify?
No, I think they can do it, but I think the difficulty in it is what's the task, because when you concur for a presidential election, you need a lot of mobilization, you need a lot of convincing, and I think we are maybe a month to the convoking of the Electoral College. A presidential election is not just it's not a simple election. So I think in terms of timing, they are facing difficulty. That's my political analysis read from it, because you need a lot of funding, you need a lot of coverage. It's 360 subdivisions. So in terms of the national coverage, they would have a difficulty doing that as well. Now, a loophole that they could easily find to be able to convince in terms of propaganda is just the confusion in the sense of the mandate. Now,
we have close to 10,000, something like that, councillors.
Right.
And some you have parliamentarians, you have regional councillors, you have municipal councillors.
Right.
But he needs just 300.
Well, that shows you the difficulty in it, because most political parties do not want to give up any vote. They don't want to give up any councillor. That's the difficulty in it. Because you could have also found, I mean, it's another political party could easily also do what they want, what he is doing, but you don't find any other political party doing what he is doing, because the scarcity of the councillors, and these political councillors, many are vying for them. So it's a political game. When you are in the political arena, you have to convince, you have to mobilize. Well, in this particular case, in the West region, he was able to get an SDF council member at the end of a term of a mandate to try to convince him to adhere to the political party. But unfortunately, you cannot change the mandate.
No,
you
you are right. I'm asking questions that, with some proof, it happened in 2013, as I say. Now, let us take the other window that MRC presidential candidate, not under his party, can use to qualify. He simply needs to be invested by another political party that has only one councillor in it. So, why do you think that that's not possible?
I think they started late. I think with the opposition political parties, there has not been a solidarity. And that solidarity shows in the fact that most political parties in Cameroon repose their agenda on the candidacy of a person. They don't rely their candidacy on a program or an agenda, which convinces Cameroonians as to the agenda. I think most Cameroonians were probably looking for a unified candidacy which will face, maybe, say, the CPDM political party or President Paul Biya. In the lack of, you find individual candidates with their own agenda at the timing, and the issue of the timing in political candidacy is very, very important. So it's very difficult to convince a majority of over 30 million Cameroonians during a short period of time that your candidacy is the best. So I think the CRM party finds itself, it's a brilliant maneuver. Let me tell you that it's a very brilliant maneuver to try to convince voters that I can be a candidate, but unfortunately the timing is wrong, and unfortunately I think the CRM party has to just wait for the legislative elections to be able to concur for universal suffrage.
Well, that's your political analysis of the situation. Lucas, do you think that it takes someone, we are 4 months, some days, to the election, a few days, 4 months, a few days to the election in October? Well, the date will be announced, but we know that it will be beginning of October. Why do I say this? In 2004, we had election, I think it was on the 11th. 2011, we had on the 9th. 2018, we had on the 7th. And hopefully, 2025, it should be on the 5th. If we go by my observation, nobody knows first. Let us say that we have this election, if it follows this logic, that we have it on the 5th of October. Is it not enough time for someone to convince you? Do you need that much time for someone to convince you to come over to their camp?
Presidential elections, everybody is on the starting block. Nobody has an advantage over another. Because the first thing is, the electoral body, Elecam, will declare who is qualified to be. So there are people who are even preparing for election that they will not even be. Okay. So when that time is given, there's a slot for campaign. They will create time for campaign. That's the time you can convince people. But my problem is with the CRM candidate, because he had all that it took to be a candidate, a presidential candidate. He refused, he boycotted the legislative election, boycotted the municipal election that could have given him elected representatives, so that today he would have gone for election without going left and right looking for councillors to be candidate. And this brings the idea, this brings something to my mind. We are making a joke of the top job of the country. We are really making a joke of it, because everybody gets up and says, I want to become presidential candidate. And then the issue is, you have a party, You don't go for local elections. You don't show your leadership at the local level. You want to rule the country, but you don't show your leadership at the local level. If I were to propose an amendment to electoral law, I would say any party that exists for 10 years and has no council and has not gone for local elections should be scrapped. Because we are really making a mockery of the top job of the country. The other day I saw on social media somebody was in Fundong saying that he's presidential candidate. And then
he's a Cameroonian.
Yes, a Cameroonian. He has his birthright.
Yes.
He has his birthright. But Killian, let's be serious. Let's be serious for once.
In presidential elections, we have surprises. We have had people that nobody expected who come up and they surprise the world.
Killian, in a democracy, election in democracy is not rocket science. Democracy and election in democracy is a game of numbers. It's a game of numbers. And in Cameroon, no person votes, I can say it, no person votes a political agenda. We have tendered, we tilt towards ethnicity, profession, age, and so it becomes a problem. And because I've seen people argue in a bar about presidential 2025 presidential elections. Someone says, and then I took my time, asked, who are you going to vote? Say, I'm going to vote this candidate. I say, why do you want to vote him? He says, because I come from this region. He's not saying because the person has prepared, and most of the time, even the presidential aspirants spend their time criticizing the present regime. I'm not a regime apologist, but you criticize something without providing an alternative.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And people will prefer to be, because people hate change, because they don't know which direction they can take. People will prefer to be, I know myself, I know what I'm going through now. And then you come and you just say, okay, you don't propose anything to me. I think that I will follow you. It will be very difficult.
Well, I will come back to you. I've received some of the aspirants on this set. Fortunately for Mr. Ekoso, there's someone from his party here who is a communication official for the Central Region. He has been coming up with a political program. What political program do you have? Just give us highlights as a member of your party to tell Lucas that there are some parties that have proposals.
Okay, I think surely he has not been following USDP. Prince Ekoso have been doing a lot since the last presidential election. We have many things that we have been doing on the ground. Maybe that's why you are not aware. But this time around, Prince Ekoso is one of the 7 political parties that came together to propose the new electoral code. And he stands for change.
Yes, they are proposing the revision. That's what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they are coming up with it so that this issue of CRL, looking for 300 signatories, is not easy. Looking a way in which they can help other aspirants to be candidate. And he has done a lot concerning the youth. What,
for example?
He has been assisting, example, those who are suffering, like patients. They are on the teaching hospital every Saturday. He goes there to assist them, support them. And he looks at Cameroonians. One of the things he has seen in Cameroon, not the war in the nation, but it is hunger, suffering. He has come up with measures on how to...
Okay, let's leave it at that. It's not about a political party. We are not here to go for his agenda and propaganda. Well, just to say, you've said that there are some of them who have. No, now, he has raised that point. We are going to handle it, not particularly on him, the prince, on the alliance. Yeah. How possible is an alliance, political parties from opposition political parties? How possible is that today in Cameroon? And what impact can it have on the presidential election in October? Yes.
Yes. Yesterday, I was following the convention of
UMS.
Pierre Kwemu. And I realized that during his convention, there were a lot of other opposition political parties that he invited. And at the end of his convention, he was elected as the representative of the party for 2025 presidential elections.
For his party.
For his party. And the mandate they gave him was for him to meet other opposition political parties to negotiate for a coalition.
An alliance.
An alliance. That is not a novelty in Cameroon. I have been and I've witnessed the issue of alliances. The problem here is what is going to obtain is when we say alliances, others will say, what are you bringing to the table? That has always been the problem. What are you bringing to the table? Imagine Kwemu will say, okay, I'm bringing myself, I'm bringing UMS, I'm bringing the council in Loom, and this is. And then somebody comes with his hands, he folds his hands and come and say he's a political leader. He doesn't have a councillor. If they organize election, even in his house, you will not win. And he wants to come and join you. What is the value he's adding to the coalition? And that's always been the problem in Cameroon, where you cannot have a unique candidate. Because everybody is individualistic.
Now, Lucas, you're making a point. But what I know is that there are people who may not have something palpable to show, but their personality alone is an asset.
Yeah, now I said with you, because I said in Cameroon, you people don't vote political agendas. You vote with personality cult. It's because it is Killian who is standing in front of me. I vote Killian. That's a personality cult. Killian is not proposing anything that is going to change the livelihood of Cameroonians. But since it is Killian, that I know who presents press, who is a handsome guy, I'm going to vote for Killian. That makes us stay on the same spot.
But it makes their political agenda.
What about those who have been proposing to change Cameroon and has not done it?
Who are those who have been proposing?
If you have a contribution you give, you're not asking questions. Yeah. Do you want to counter that point? Then I give you the floor again.
Yes, I want to counter that his point.
Yes.
If we want to go on the fact that we want people who will promise what they are going to do, I think it's not the point, because people have been promising that they will do this, and we only see them during elections, and after election we no longer see them.
Well, what we know, have you finished?
No, I'm not finished.
Okay.
Want people who can stand for the nation, especially what is going on. People who can solve the problems that we have at hand. People who have the vision for the youth.
Yes, in politics we have what we call political science. Anything that goes with science goes with a procedure. It has a way it goes. And if we went by that, we would say that in politics around the world, for you to do anything, you need to have a political agenda, political program, political ideology first of all. So it's not like people have been promising. You need to promise people. You are a political analyst, I'm not one. So, yes, I give you the floor to clarify this and then show how, yes, there must be this.
I understand everyone, because from a political point of view, you have to understand that when you're conquering for universal suffrage, it's through a political party. Now, for you to be able to conquer for universal suffrage, you need to have a political party that's well structured, from the membership, from the directory, from the bureau, and all that. Now, most political parties in Cameroon have a difficulty with structuration, because you need means, you need a lot of money to be able to do that. It tends to be almost like a business. So therefore, most political parties have an interest. And also, you have to base it on a constituency. Now, being able, with the context of Cameroon, to go out throughout the national territory to convince diverse Cameroonians, and also in the diaspora, of your agenda, it takes time. So that's why I say initially, just like I was saying, the CRM political party, viewing that and understanding the stakes, was able to look more instead to electoral process loopholes, because they don't necessarily agree with the electoral code. So to me, as a political analyst, I think that is a loophole. I think you might not agree with the electoral code, but you need to just follow the process. And if the process stands by the fact that you might only concur during the legislative elections, then you should do that. For many other political parties, it is all much more different. You could look at a candidate like Akaramona, who's coming from civil society, but is not necessarily a political candidate in that sense, where civil society says, well, we can trust them. But in terms of the vote, in terms of when you go out toward the national territory, how many Cameroonians believe that civil society can actually reform and change Cameroon due to administrative tolerance and other things? And then you look at the CPDM political party, which is implanted toward the national territory, which has members, subsections, and section presidents, and you see them massively. They might not only convene during when they call the electoral coverage, but they are constantly on the field, because politics is on the field. Politics is not just on television. Politics is being able to go down to the grassroots politics.
There is something which you have
people.
said. I'm not going against per se, but I find a problem in it. There are two things in a political setting, like a country, or that go and make sure there are checks and balances.
Yes.
Which means they can overturn the tables, political tables. You have the civil society,
right.
You have the opposition political parties, if they are well organized. When you say civil society doesn't actually have the force, I doubt what you're talking about.
Civil society can only have the force if they are able to mobilize. But civil society, if it's dispersed, cannot mobilize.
Well, it's not for you to say whether they're dispersed or not.
The mobilization it might be subjective, but in the context of Cameroon, from what we see with civil society is dispersed. And when we go into the context of civil society, it is varied, because most civil society sometimes adhere to cult, adhere to spirituality, adhere to different things.
We cannot be talking about. We will not talk about that here.
Variant,
you cannot prove that here, so we will not talk. We will not go into that.
I mean,
those are things under the table. We don't talk about that here.
I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that civil society is very dispersed.
Yes, barrister.
Yes.
The chances of some of the aspirants to get through, given the obstacles they have. Let's even just go back to the 2018 presidential election. We had Cabral Libi, who came out, I think, third, after Kamto, who was second to the CPDM candidate. We also have Barrister Keremuna, who allied, would come to at the last point. What are the chances of let's take one. You already showed how MRC candidate has some legal obstacles on his way.
Right.
Let's look at the chances of Cabral Libre, who also has issues in the PCRN party. Let's look at his chances, because he also performs so well. And he is also someone who is outspoken and pulls the crowd.
No, when we look at Cabral Libi with his PCRN party, legally, he has no problem with his candidacy going through, because the party he represents has elected representatives. There are some internal squabblings within the party, but those internal squabblings are completely private issues of the party. The question that Elecam looks at is that a political party presents a candidate. Once a political party has presented a candidate and that political party has elected officials, Elecam will not go into internal squabblings or the in-house fighting of the party. With coming against still the case of Cabral Libi, I think the in-house fighting they have been having has had some legal outcomes, I think so. I'm not a member of that party.
And administrative, legal and administrative.
Yes, so I think that the court at one point held that Cabral Libi is a legal representative of the party. So, but again, like I still reiterate, that is a purely internal squabble of the party. If the PCRN, that is recognized as a party that has elected officials, if they present a candidate, the candidacy of that party has no problem.
Now, where there are problems is that, and with Elecam, you're going to clarify me. I've reported for Elecam, and I know I have also seen what happens at the Constitutional Council, where it will end, or where it always ends, is that internal squabbles can disqualify both. Because what will happen is that Minat came out with a declaration recognizing the other faction of PCRN, led by the founding father, Robert Kuna. Now, the Minat, the one authorizing political parties on behalf of the state. The law court and his representation has recognized Cabral Libby. What will happen is that, from my own point of view, I want you to either concord or dispute that. Two candidates will be presented to Elekam, naturally. The Kuna faction and then Cabral faction. Elekam will say one political party cannot present two candidates.
Sure.
And when it goes up to the Constitutional Council, will say, we'll reject them and say, go and fix your house before you come and see me. So there is a problem from my perspective on that point. Yes, Lucas.
Yes, let's just, since you said we have to at least ascertain the chances of the aspirants.
Yes.
For benefit of doubt, let's say Cabral Libby is a candidate.
Yes.
I want also, from that perspective, for benefit of doubt, just say he's a candidate. Then let's assess his chances. Let's assess his chances as a presidential candidate. I have said in Cameroon here, just say we have 8 million voters. Because in January 2025, Elekam was targeting 8 million at the end for this 2025 presidential election.
Elekam almost has that already.
Yes.
When they come out,
yes.
it was 7.8, 7.9 at the same
8 million.
Yes.
Of the 8 million voters. Because when you want to go for elections, you must know the electorate and know what percentage of the electorate you control. If, and in Cameroon here now, presently, in these 2025 elections, there are around 3 parameters that are going to come into play. You have the age parameter. You look at the age, the conservative, and the youth. They are going to look at the age parameter of candidates. That's one parameter. Second parameter, which is always predominant, is ethnicity. Third parameter will be the political agenda, which is always the last. If we take the age parameter, we see that more youths have, we look at the statistics of Elekam and say more youths have registered. We begin to see chances of Cabral Libby because he appeals to the youth. But if you look at the number of people who are equally registered, who are conservative, you begin to see other candidates are already beating him. Now, let me even try to stratify it in a different way. Half of the electorate is in the 3 northern regions. Half the electorate in Cameroon. You are aware of that. Half of the electorate is in the 3 northern regions. 3 northern regions make half of the electorate of Cameroon. And these 3 northern regions are not presenting a candidate. Are they presenting a candidate? All the political elite there have formed alliance with the CPDM. In alliance with the CPDM, you have MDR, that's a party there. You have UNDP, that's a party here. You have ANDP, that's a party there. You have Chirumas, FSND. All of them are in alliance with the CPDM, which means they are not going to present any candidate. It means the CPDM candidate is a natural candidate there.
But what we also know is that we should be frank. We have heard, we have seen dissenting voices coming from there.
There are dissenting voices coming from there. So many dissenting voices. But there's what Barrister knows, that there, when the leader of the community says, is this party, it becomes a religion. People are voting that party. Irrespective of dissenting voices, they can quiet down the dissenting voices. Which means if you want to go for the numbers, I said elections and presidential elections is not rocket science. It's a game of numbers. And in Cameroon, it is not absolute majority, because absolute majority means 50 plus 1. Then you must score 50 plus 1 of the electorate. But it is relative majority. And in relative majority means somebody can go just to the far north, wins the total far north, he has won elections in Cameroon.
Well, when we'll get there, we're going to cross that bridge.
Yes.
Barrister.
Yes, I think Mr. Tening is going already into the performance of the candidate, but we are still at the level of the acceptability of the candidacy. And you pose a problem with Cabral Libby's party. We all know that court judgment, they take precedence over any other decision. An administrative decision cannot go above a court judgment. So, if the PCRN has a judgment that recognizes Cabral Libby as a party, as a leader of that party, then it is a wing of Cabral Libi that has to present a candidate. So, if another candidate is presented by another person, normally, Elecam should reject the candidacy of that party. That is not recognized by a court judgment.
Well,
that is how I look at it.
Yes.
I think there are many takes on it. I think, just like you rightly said, they're aspirants. I think everybody has a chance as an aspirant because they're also, you have to give benefit of the doubt as well. But there's a key issue of mobilization. I think when you look at the aspirants as well, I think in terms of Cameroon, one of the names that people recognize the most is President Paul Biya, Cabral Libi, and Maurice Kamto. You could look at it as a
we are not talking about the SDF because their candidate is known.
No, so and the SDF as well.
Yes,
but when we look at
Joshua Ossi.
But when we look at the, I just want to be able to pinpoint something which is very important for the aspirant: the capacity to mobilize. And this capacity to mobilize, even though it doesn't translate directly into the vote, has a lot to do with the voter turnout as well. So the capacity to mobilize also will dictate the voter turnout during the course of the elections. As we look at Cabral Libi, we would understand.
And the mobilization can take place, like Lucas said, within the 2 weeks of the campaign.
Unfortunately, in politics and political party, mobilization takes a lot of effort. That's why in most political parties, you want to give it over a period of time. There's a pre-mobilization because you also have to convince people, you have to inform people, and you have to also allow those within your political party to be able to go on the field. So that creates an issue here. So when we look at those political parties that have been, we'll look at it for the past year and a half, that have been on the scene, maybe that's the right way we want to put it, that have been on the scene that Cameroonians can recognize, because I don't want people to confuse the fact that you can mobilize, but it doesn't translate into a vote. Because we've seen that in the course of elections where people wear different political t-shirts of different political parties and you did not know who they actually voted for. So that's why the Electoral Commission sometimes is very mixed. So that's why I say in precaution, it is very well that we could understand that maybe those who are not admissible by the Electoral Council can concur to the Constitutional Council for there to be maybe another review.
Yes, Reverend Robert, let us get from you, and I'm going to take that round the table. Do you see any surprise element in the 2025 presidential election in Cameroon? Surprise element.
I think that's a very good question coming from you. I think even the political analyst, the publisher is aware of USDP. I think USDP will surprise many people this time around because of the underground work they have been doing. And I want to...
USDP does not have a representation in parliament, in councils, or how are they going to supply?
We are going to have the 300 signatures.
Oh, okay.
And I want Cameroonians to also understand that we should not just look at the parties, the analysts called the big parties, political parties. Yeah, let's look at what happened also in Guinea and Burkina Faso. The president came from nowhere, and they should also believe on Prince Ekoso.
Okay.
Who is coming up powerfully.
Thank you. We're not going personal. Yes, please, one minute. We have just about 3 minutes to go to the end. Now, we are talking about surprise element, especially from you, political analyst.
I think the surprise element, which you should maybe would see at the last when they convoke, the ability for maybe say the opposition political candidates to come with a unique candidate towards the end, because those are the surprises that you could be able to see. Those alliances where you could see a fusion on one candidacy where they'll be able to give their vote to another political party. Normally that's what you see when it comes to the end, where you could see maybe an Akere Muna join a Joshua Ossi.
Yes, Barrister.
Yes, surprise element. I think for me, it will be difficult for us to see, because I keep on thinking that the main problem in our electoral system is the electoral code. It needs to be reviewed. If this electoral code is not reviewed, I think we are expecting no surprises. I don't see any surprise element under this electoral system or the electoral code that we have.
What's wrong with the electoral code?
The electoral system does not guarantee free and fair election. It's clear. Especially when it has to do with presidential and legislative election. Because for municipal elections, you discover that the election management organ manages the electoral process until the proclamation of results. When it goes to legislative and presidential election, you see that the power is hijacked from Elecam to organs that are appointed by the government. So you see that LECAM does not have a mastering of the electoral process from beginning to the end when it has to do presidential and legislative elections.
Well, hijacked is too hard a word because I know that Elecam still
I like to
organizes.
call them mixed. I like to call them mixed commissions by Elecam. I don't. The 35,000 polling stations have mixed commissions.
Lucas.
Yes, the surprise, my surprise would be to see the opposition candidates come together. That would be a surprise for me. That would be a big surprise.
And can be the game changer.
That is the game changer, but it would be a big surprise. Because there's what we call the divide and rule. There are so many, you saw parties that were already clamoring to throw their weight behind the ruling party. You saw a number of parties that are already calling themselves presidential majority. But I'm trying to look for the opposition majority. And I've not seen the opposition majority. And we should equally tell those who are in the opposition that the opposition is a transition to power. It is not a profession. You could be in the profession for 25, 35 years, and you say, I'm in the position, it has become a profession. It should be a transition.
And that surprise.
That surprise should be that they should unite.
Yes, and when we talk to the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement leaders and followers, they say that even if the opposition were to unite, they will meet a force that is too hard for them to break.
Let them unite and let's see the force. At least let's even measure the force for the exercise of the game. Let's measure the force. It should not be a one-sided game that, as we call it, advanced democracy. Before you go for the elections, you already know who is going to win. It doesn't make sense to us.
Well, for now, it's difficult to have that surprise element because the opposition has not agreed, as Paul said, for so long. If it happens now, it will be the surprise element. Thank you so much for coming, Barrister Fombat Mujem, Barrister at Law. We had Reverend Kundang Robert, who is USDP Communication Secretary for the Central Region. We had you, Paul Anchang, political analyst. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
And Lucas Tening Chefo for your incisive contributions, publisher, the Reporter newspaper. And we are here for you, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you for your time. Thanks once again for watching.